In the darkest and oldest regions beyond our solar system, past the point where light is inexistent, more than a recollection, a machine produced by humans has drifted for nearly half a century, a millennium. In 1977, Voyager 2 was launched. It was not designed to return, but rather to observe. It left the planet, crossed the heliosphere, and made it into the interstellar medium as humanity's closest emissary to enter the void. But Voyager 2 continued while the world moved on, listening. In addition, it spoke last month back, not through a technological upgrade, not with solar data or radiation, but with something that nobody anticipated. A transmission in this manner, so deliberate and so incorrect that it left experts thawed. Initially, the message appeared to be background noise, but a recurring explosion was concealed within, precise, rhythmic, and out of place. Scientists believed it to be decoded interference. Instead, what they discovered was intelligent, a pattern, terrifying, complex, and completely alien to Earth. And when they located the cause of the incident, they realized that something was at its source, getting close to Voyager 2, not stumbling, not orbiting and following. And at that exact instant, the previous spacecraft evolved into something new than an apparatus. It transformed into a mirror, revealing a fact that we have long denied. Even though they are old, Voyager 2's instruments still are, by today's standards, incredibly sensitive. They are constructed to detect the smallest changes in electromagnetic fields, plasma waves, and radiation from space. However, in a recent batch of data retrieved from the Outer Space Network, a spike of low frequency appeared, one that came back at 11.2-second intervals. That isn't background noise from the cosmos. That is a timer. Engineers were the first to dismiss it as an issue with the software, by interference from deep space. But when they retrieved older logs of telemetry and discovered that an identical pulse had occurred once previously, several weeks ago, and had been completely missed. With AI today, the data-enhanced filtering tools created an unsettling picture. The rhythm was not only recurring but also growing in force, and it was emanating from away from the probe. Even more frightening, there appeared to be a spectrum in the pulse, a signature, also known as a fingerprint. The most prevalent inverted hydrogen resonance, the universe's most abundant element, but twisted. It was dubbed a cosmic anomaly. Others thought it was intentional manipulation, but in either case, deep space had remained silent, broken by something, not by noise, that could communicate mathematically. Music. Using frequency delay and triangulation analysis, Mission Control came to the conclusion that the pulse did not originate from stationary. In fact, it was progressing, a vector that is identical to Voyager 2's trajectory, that looked almost like it was tailing the craft in space. However, this object did not follow any orbital mechanics that is known. It sped up and slowed down in short bursts, utterly ignoring the gravitational pull of anything nearby mass. When analysts attempted to its course according to Newtonian physics, each model went wrong. The item was not coasting, adjusting and correcting itself. Its quick reaction to Voyager's faint transmissions. Also, it wasn't broadcasting in our direction. It was bouncing or reflecting the signal, modified version of the data from Voyager, like a cosmic ray, flow back into the void, the echo chamber. Theories spread rapidly across separated lines of communication. Was that an errant satellite from a long-gone mission? A remnant of an alien race civilization? An undercover surveillance system? Regardless, it had waited until now in silence for decades. And the Voyager signal may have been the trigger. Things became more bizarre when linguists and signal theorists joined the team because of the anomaly. Within, there were binary segments in the transmission that was not the result of Voyager 2's protocols for commands. When depicted using tools for recognizing patterns, those segments had shapes that were symmetrical, geometric shapes, fractals, and spirals. Alignments that looked very much like ancient symbols that exist on Earth. Based on Sumerian, they were not similar to Nazca glyphs in any way, only signals. They were encoded glyphs in wave shapes, and the more advanced scientists viewed, the more apparent it became. The message's structure was not random and strangely in line with how visual information may be encoded by intelligent ideas that make use of electromagnetic harmonics. There were rumors that this was more than a broadcast. It was a test. A method for determining whether humanity had reached a stage where it might even recognize a hidden message in such complexity. Additionally, that test had just been passed. Voyager was now a trigger between stars, and somebody else there had finally chosen to respond back. The final component followed. The young Caltech physicists ran the signal through an AI that uses deep neural networks to simulate responses that are cryptographic. What came back was not simply an interpretation, it was a repetition. The AI began manufacturing patterns, responses that are predictive, reflected the logic of the transmission, anticipating the possible next step. That without the signal this would not be possible. It was recursive in itself, a loop designed to elicit interaction similar to a puzzle awaiting resolution. In the meantime, Voyager, I was billions of miles away. A magnetic shift was detected, similar to the original pulse of Voyager 2, 2 anomalies, 2 spacecraft, and an increasing awareness that these were not isolated incidents but a component of something coordinated. The query was no longer relevant. What is available? Why now then? Why the silence after nearly 50 years? Would something respond suddenly, just as humanity neared the point where it could decode it? Just when researchers thought Voyager has more time to decipher the message, 2 completely stopped talking. The initial control on the ground assumed it was hardware malfunction. In any case, the spacecraft is older than 46 years. Then, however, a wave of similar anomalies occurred. Deep receivers for the space network, not just in California, but in Spain and across all of Australia, reported a flawless loss of the signal with the identical timestamp, 1437 UTC. The probabilities of a global simultaneous failure, almost none. Equipment error did not cause this. Something had turned off the outside signal deliberately, surgically, and with timing that was exactly right for the pulse pattern that Voyager had discovered. But it continued for 5 minutes after the blackout. A narrowband radio wave caused Earth from the same space quadrant. It lacked any recognizable structure, but it was as strong as the signals we have only ever observed from far away before. Pulsars. However, this was not from a neutron star. It came from close by. Voyager 2 was getting closer and closer. Data were leaked in a classified briefing from the Laboratory for Jet Propulsion, exhibited an alarming update. An outsider object had begun to change direction in reaction to the deep space network of Earth pings. The object was visible in the trajectory, a slight adjustment each time Earth sent a sudden outburst of a command or signal at Voyager 2. The implication was that this item was not just listening to us. It was investigating our method of communication and understanding how probe and ping spacecraft. Even worse, its course was no longer arbitrary. On it was a trajectory of intercept, not toward Voyager 2, but heading in our direction. It was given the codename Echo Lantern. Why? Because it appeared to act in the manner of an entity that resembles light and shadow, silence and communication, turning our incorporated technology into its beacon. Also, the more we looked, the more obvious it became. The signal from Voyager 2 had become a trail of breadcrumbs. We could not find something, but we must find something. The enigmatic object got closer to the invisible bubble known as the helipause that distinguishes solar wind from the strange interstellar medium happened. The sun's own wind twisted. NASA's IBEX probe's instruments and the solar orbiter of ESA observed a decrease in pressure from the solar wind, followed by a complete halt to the flow in a narrow corridor that leads in that direction from Voyager 2. That has never taken place before, not over the years of the heliophysical information we've gathered. Solar unless otherwise interrupted by something enormous, like a planet's magnetosphere or a mysterious field emitter. However, this corridor is now called the Sun's Veil. It was still open for 3 hours before bursting apart. Additionally, there is no radiation in that corridor. There are no particles, only silence. It appeared as if a door had been opened by someone, but not through space, but by means of the physics control it. It is now what scientists call it. The initial evidence of deliberate tampering with solar elements, and the sole contender capable of activating it, remained close to Voyager 2 tracking. Then all of a sudden it stopped talking. Voyager 2 spoke once more. However, this time the data were more than just telemetry. It was encrypted. That can't be true. Voyager does not include protocols for encryption. It was constructed in the 1970s, however. When the binary was decoded by mission control, they came across an altered version in the stream. The first golden record, the message we sent into transmission space in the year 1977. However, this one was unique. The sound human samples had been reorganized, Music was changed in voices, played backwards, pitch, and reversible star charts. A few of the cover's coordinates glyphs no longer referred to the planet Earth, but to voids between stars in interstellar space exist. It seemed as though Voyager had been taken over, and its message was not repurposed to state that we are, instead of being, now listening. When the systems of Voyager 2 were looked at after the anomaly of the Golden Record, engineers discovered something terrifying. The various command subordinates, the onboard computer of the spacecraft, had been rewritten. Neither tampered with nor distorted, rewritten. Code lines that hadn't changed suddenly after 46 years themselves with Voyager-like syntax. Processing units were never intended to interpret. Voyager was, in some way, executing commands outside of its exclusive programming. These brand new habits weren't native to Earth. They didn't come from NASA. They did not come from any base transmission. They appeared to be internal. A signal had been sent to the craft by elsewhere and complied. The highest terrifying is the revised subtext routines emphasized a single function. Transmission over long distances broadcast, but not toward Earth, but instead toward deep space between stars. That is, Voyager was no longer just listening. It was responding. And we don't know what it said. Within a matter of hours, several worldwide observatories, such as those in Greenland, Chile, and Japan, were ordered to reorient their tools without a reason. Their objectives: 3 distinct deep space regions aligned with the Voyager 2 vector transmission. Encryption simultaneously communications that were leaked from a referenced European Defense Agency, what is known as the Wake Protocol. This protocol, long thought to be Cold War protocol fiction, is a directive for multiple agencies reserved for confirmed contacts-only scenarios, especially those that involve externally activating automated probes responses. Furthermore, it entails lockdowns of satellites that are classified, suspension of particular frequency bands, and the reorientation of the telescope arrays toward the outermost parts of the Kuiper belt. Why? Due to the fact that once a machine sends a message, we are no longer in a position to in charge of initial contact, and the world's powers must expect the worst, that someone or something outside might respond in a manner we are not prepared for receive. A brand new anomaly then surfaced, a window for of precisely 41 minutes. Numerous both ground stations and satellites encountered what has been described as a signal loop known as temporal echo, in which data packets were repeated in flawless coherence, as if at the same instant, and telemetry was manipulated over and over. However, they were not archives. These were distorted live feeds in some way that gave the impression that time had stopped, had gone wrong. Throughout this time, solar data and Voyager 2's data telemetry and observations from unrelated probes kept looping. Now, some physicists believe that this was not a coincidental but deliberate ripple, possibly brought on by a localized distortion of space-time close to Voyager's location. Whatever this means, if true, is doing more than just interacting with the probe intelligently. It might be able to bending and manipulating time fields, causality, or projecting information across dimensions. As a result, a group of physicists working on the incident was mentioned in the analysis by a name derived from ancient legends, Bloom by Kronos. Since if time where the universe's rules are then violated just occurred, finally, it occurred 2 days after the ground stations in the Kronos Bloom, New Zealand and Norway, both far away, selected low-noise monitoring facilities, an indication that came from space between stars and traveled through our environment. It was not a re-examination, and it was not a rebound from the radiosphere. The signal came in Earth's atmosphere directly, targeted with the precision of a laser. It was high-frequency, narrowband, and composed of subharmonics that were equivalent to the Voyager anomaly. The frightening part came to an end by becoming ingrained in terrestrial systems that depend on oceanic weather satellites, sensors, and even across the Pacific communication buoys. To put it another way, it didn't just pass. It remained throughout. This signal is now a component of our worldwide data infrastructure. Nobody is aware of what it is doing. No one knows what set it off. However, one thing is clear. Regardless of how Voyager 2 awoke, it was able to contact anyone or anything. Contact us. International attention remained focused on